we got assassinated, we were dead. The attitude was like, y'all had your careers, your life is over.
Gravediggaz featuring Prince Paul, aka The Undertaker, Frukwan, The Gatekeeper, Too Poetic, The Grim Reaper, and Prince Rakim, aka The Resurrector, active since 1994. In hip-hop's golden age, when the genre was exploding with innovation and identity, a darker force crept from the shadows. In 1994, four respected veterans, Prince Paul, RZA, Frukwan, and Poetic, joined together to form Gravediggaz, a group unlike anything rap had ever seen before. Where most artists use braggadocio or street tales to paint their world, Gravediggaz leaned fully into darkness, mixing twisted humor with vivid imagery of death, coffins, and cemeteries. They didn't just flirt with darkness, they embodied it, helping to pioneer what became known as horrorcore. Their debut album 6 Feet Deep was more than a collection of songs, it was a statement. Released on G Street Records, the project stood out in a crowded field where rap was either polished for mainstream or hardened by street narratives. Gravediggaz offered a chilling third option, a theatrical soundtrack to society's nightmares. Critics praised the creativity, while fans gravitated to tracks like Diary of a Madman and 1-800-Suicide, which weren't just clever but unsettling, cementing the group's reputation as both innovators and provocateurs. Yet the same daring approach that gave them life also limited their reach. Their music was too dark, too theatrical, and too unconventional to ever thrive on radio or MTV. And with RZA pouring his energy into building the Wu-Tang Empire and Prince Paul chasing his own production experiments, Gravediggaz soon found themselves losing momentum. When they returned in 1997 with the pick The Sickle and The Shovel, the tone had shifted. Less horror-driven and more political and spiritual, the album showed artistic growth but confused listeners who expected the same cemetery rap of their debut. The novelty that once shocked audiences was gone, replaced with a message that didn't hit as hard commercially. By the early 2000s, the group's presence faded even further, marked by tragedy when Poetic passed away from colon cancer in 2001. His death effectively buried Gravediggaz as a functioning unit, leaving only fragments of what could have been. Still, their influence is undeniable. They pushed rap into new theatrical spaces, proving the genre could be experimental, cinematic, and terrifying all at once. But for a group that defined itself by digging graves, it's almost poetic that their career found itself buried before it could truly live. What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC, StuntedGrowthMusic. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Gravediggaz were a rap supergroup made up of four veterans. Prince Paul, the innovative producer from Stetsasonic and De La Soul's early classics, RZA already laying the foundation for Wu-Tang Clan's takeover, Frukwan, another former Stetsasonic member, and Too Poetic, a determined lyricist from the Brothers Grimm. Each entered the group carrying both talent and frustration. Prince Paul was struggling with industry rejection after his run with De La Soul. RZA was still shaking off the sting of his failed solo career as Prince Rakim, despite Wu-Tang's rising profile. And Poetic had spent years trying to make his name in New York's underground. Together, they transformed those setbacks into something new. Signed to G Street Records, they released 6 Feet Deep in '94, earning critical praise and a cult following with its eerie production, twisted humor, and grim storytelling. From the start, Gravediggaz were seen as outsiders, pushing rap into uncharted territory. Stunt number 1, shock value without staying power.
We just feeding off of everyday situations and showing you the horrors of everyday life.
When Gravediggaz released 6 Feet Deep in '94, the album immediately stood out for its originality. Few expected four veterans, Prince Paul, RZA, Frukwan, and Poetic, to reinvent themselves with such a dark theatrical concept. The debut earned critical praise and made noise on the charts, peaking at number 52 on the Billboard 200 and number 36 on the R&B and hip-hop list. Those numbers were respectable for an experimental project, but they also revealed the group's ceiling. Strong underground recognition without the breakthrough needed to cross into the mainstream. The album functioned like a horror movie in rap form. Songs such as Diary of a Madman and 1-800-Suicide were chilling and creative, but they weren't the kind of tracks that could live on radio rotation or MTV. Fans who loved the originality embraced it, but casual listeners found little to return to once the shock wore off. Unlike albums such as Illmatic or Ready to Die, which combined depth and replay value, 6 Feet Deep thrived mostly as a one-time experience for those who wanted something different. Even within the group, there was an awareness that the concept wasn't built to last. Prince Paul has admitted that the horrorcore idea started as satire, a way to cope with being dismissed by labels. For RZA, the group was more of a side project, with his real energy tied to building Wu-Tang Clan into a dynasty. That left Gravediggaz defined by a gimmick that couldn't easily evolve into something broader. What began as their greatest strength, being the scariest and most inventive group in hip-hop, also created their limitations. Without the ability to pivot into a sound with wider reach, Gravediggaz remained locked into a niche. They had underground respect and influence, but their debut ended up as both their breakthrough and their peak, making it difficult to grow further while the rest of hip-hop kept moving forward. Stunt number 2, losing their identity on the second album. By 1997, 3 years had passed since 6 Feet Deep, and the hype surrounding Gravediggaz had cooled. When they returned with the pick The Sickle and The Shovel, fans expected the same chilling horrorcore energy that made their debut a cult favorite. Instead, the group shifted directions. The follow-up leaned heavily on political, spiritual, and the 5% Nation themes, with far less of the shock imagery that originally set them apart. The production was smoother, less eerie, and the group's chemistry didn't carry the same raw edge. On paper, the move made sense. Horrorcore had proven itself too niche to sustain mainstream growth, so Gravediggaz attempted to broaden their subject matter. But the pivot left them stuck in the middle. The hardcore fans who loved the over-the-top darkness of their debut felt alienated, while casual listeners still weren't sure who Gravediggaz really were. The shift in tone diluted their brand, stripping away the unique identity that gave them purpose in the first place. Timing didn't help either. By 1997, hip-hop was in a different place entirely. Bad Boy was dominating the charts with polished radio hits, while Wu-Tang was expanding into a global force. RZA, one of Gravediggaz's most important pieces, was consumed by managing that empire and appeared less invested in the group. Without his full presence and without Prince Paul producing every track, the pick, The Sickle, and The Shovel lacked the same edge, cohesion, and urgency. Though the album received some praise for its consciousness and maturity, it never caught momentum with a specific fan base. In trying to prove they could be more than just horrorcore, Gravediggaz ended up losing the very identity that made them matter in the first place, creating a gap they never recovered from. Stunt number 3, a changing industry left them behind. By the late 90s, hip-hop no longer had space for experiments like Gravediggaz. The era of playful shock value was over. Rap was either conquering the mainstream with chart-ready singles or surviving underground by building loyal grassroots followings. Gravediggaz landed awkwardly in between. They lacked the polished crossover hits and radio appeal to compete with artists like Jay-Z, Nas, or Puff Daddy, but they also didn't connect deeply enough with underground fans once horrorcore's novelty wore off. Their niche was essentially outdated and the industry had already moved on to something fresher. RZA's rise as the mastermind of Wu-Tang Clan only highlighted the problem. While Wu-Tang created an empire with multiple solo careers and platinum albums, Gravediggaz couldn't escape being viewed as a side project. Prince Paul, too, was respected more as a producer than a front-facing artist, while Frukwan and Poetic never reached household recognition. Without the weight of true star power outside of RZA, the group's appeal grew smaller each year, shrinking even further as hip-hop became more commercially structured. By the time Nightmare in A- surfaced, released in 2001 in Europe and later in 2002 in the United States, the hip-hop landscape was unrecognizable compared to when Gravediggaz started. Eminem was selling millions, Southern rap was beginning its takeover, and even underground artists like MF Doom or Company Flow had carved lanes that felt more relatable. Gravediggaz's graveyard imagery and horror skits seemed dated, like a reminder of a trend that had expired years before. Poetic's untimely death in 2001 sealed their fate, but truthfully, the group was already finished. Their experiment had an expiration date from the beginning, and once the industry outpaced them, there was no way back. What once felt groundbreaking now felt stuck in a time capsule, respected, remembered, but no longer relevant. All in all, Gravediggaz showed how far hip-hop could be pushed when artists weren't afraid to experiment. They turned rap into something theatrical, creepy, and funny at the same time, creating a style that stood out in the mid-90s. 6 Foot Deep gave horrorcore its clearest identity and remains a cult classic that influenced acts who wanted to take hip-hop in darker, stranger directions. But the same creativity that made them unique also boxed them in. Their sound wasn't built for radio, their image wasn't built for MTV, and when the industry moved toward glossy commercial rap, Gravediggaz were left behind. Their later work proved they had ideas, but not the platform to make them last. Today their career feels short, but their impact still lingers. Gravediggaz were buried early, yet their influence continues to echo in hip-hop's history. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, their growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, StuntedGrowthMusic, and I'm out.
We're just trying to manifest and bring forth the harvest of modern day life, because positive education activates constant elevation. That means peace.